Then the next phase was looking at intuition. The reason we went down this path was one of the most common things we were hearing from people who were learning the HeartMath techniques of how to get into a coherent heart rhythm state and better manage themselves and self-regulate themselves was intuition. People all over the world were saying, it just seems like my intuition's on steroids now. It's really grown. And then usually the second thing, and the synchronicities now really seem to be just way more in my life. So that was intriguing, and of course it's been my own experience as well as many others that I knew. So it ran across a protocol that I thought could really work for this. So we did a series of studies. I won't go into great detail here, but basically a person sitting at a computer, and a future picture is going to pop up. That's either going to be a really ugly negative picture or a calm, picture, butterflies and nature scenes. And that these are presented in a way that there's no way you can guess what they're going to be. You can't get a pattern. A lot of rigor goes into these experiments. Meanwhile, we're measuring the body. We're measuring the electrocardiogram, the activity of the heart, the brain waves, skin conductance, and these other measures. And what we found from that series of studies was that the actual flow of what we now call non-local intuition is just the heart first. The heart is the first system in the body to get the signal, wherever that comes from, sends a measurably different neurological signal to the brain. You get a brain response all before the future event now. Then a body response and things like the skin conductance. So in this particular protocol, which is a 6-second window before we started you push a button to start the sequence, and before the future picture was going to see. So very quickly after you push the button, there's a heart response. Okay, then a measurably different neurological signal sent from the heart to the brain, and you see a measurably different change in brain function, right, when and where it happens in time through the procedures we were using. Then you see a body shift. All this before the future picture. Right, so a lot of people talk about gut feelings, right, or the hair on the back of the neck, but in reality it's heart, brain, body, like the gut feeling, which is where it becomes conscious. So this is all unconscious. And if we're paying attention, we might feel the body change. Right? Then you have the future event. And what was amazing was that the heart was about 80% accurate in predicting what the future picture was going to be. Far better than you could ever cognitively guess or any of the other physiological measures. Now that's since been validated and repeated in multiple studies, and we developed other protocols that showed what we call pre-stimulus response, the heart knowing before. Instead of being 6 seconds in the original studies, was 20 seconds. But that's really just an artifact, if you will. Artifact's the wrong word, but a function of the window that we allow the recording to happen in that pre-stimulus period. Because we all know from our own personal experience, intuition's not limited to X time frame before a future event. It could be days in some cases, and so on. So interestingly, I got that published at that time, and this is back in the 90s, in peer-reviewed scientific journals, right, by discussing these findings as though the heart and also brain, because it was also a pre-stimulus just later in time, appears to have access to a field of information that is outside the boundaries of time and space. Perfectly acceptable language for scientific journals. Because at that time, things like entanglement and non-locality have been actually proven beyond a shadow of a doubt in the quantum physics community. But at that time, it was only supposed to be happening at subatomic scales, photons and so on, and electrons and what have you. Now, since that, now we are here in 2018, that's all been shattered, and we now know that entanglement and non-locality occur at what are called macroscopic scale, whole atoms and groups of atoms. That's been proven there as well. But we were showing it in these wet, messy biological systems long before that had been done in the quantum physics community. But anyway, we got that published, and that led to a lot of other cool findings and partnerships on the study of intuition. Since then, I've come a little more out of the closet. But what do I mean by a field of information outside the boundaries of time and space? So here in the HeartMath community, we just call it our larger self. And what I mean by that is the energetic side of our things that we can't measure. Like, you can't put an emotion under a microscope. You can't put a thought or an intuition under a microscope. But it's, every culture has their word for it. Higher self, spirit, soul, whatever you want to. People are trying to say there's something deeper about me that's part of my undivided wholeness, as David Bohm, a great quantum physicist, would say it. So that's really what I meant by a field of information. And so this kind of line of research suggests that's quite real, and that the great religions, the core theme of the great religions, and a lot of the philosophers have been right all along, that the heart is literally an access point to that deeper source of intelligence within us. And that what we mean by intuition in this case is the flow of information from that larger part of ourself down through the energetic heart, the heart down into the DNA mind-brain system that we then call intuitions. And that's really our inner guidance. And the other thing this line of research also showed, it was important to mention here, is that when we get into this heart rhythm coherent state, before going through these scientific protocols, the access to intuition was greatly expanded, significantly more. So these channels, if you want to call it, through the nervous system between the heart and brain were opened up, and you had much larger effects of the signals from the heart modulating and informing the brain. So, I mean, the type of intuition I'm describing here, even though it would embrace this, is not about going to Las Vegas and seeing through a deck of cards, right, or winning the lottery. There's in fact, in our work on intuition, we really define 3 types, and they're all important. But the most important for me is this what I'm calling non-local, beyond time and space. And it's really the signal from that larger part of ourselves, the inner guidance. And that, so what I practice personally is in my day-to-day life, with the highest ratio I can of really following that intuitive guidance. And that it gets into all kinds of things that it can regulate: what I eat, what I don't eat, who I have relationships with. In my scientific work, it's a huge factor, those intuitive guidances. It's really what helps us navigate life with ease and grace, and keeps us out of a lot of situations that we get a lot of feedback on, meaning stress, later on. And for most people, when they're really honest and reflect, I have trained many thousands of people now and been involved in many discussions around this, almost everybody knows this. If they're really honest, they can think back on their own lives when they had an inner prompting, whatever you want to call it, right? But that inner knowing, that inner prompting, and they chose not to follow it, and how that plays out versus when they do follow it, and vice versa, right? So we've all had those experiences for the most part if we're really honest about it. So that's really what I'm talking about. And the practice of the HeartMath skills, the techniques, which are simple techniques that help get you into this coherent state. And whether we talk about it that way or not, whether it's in law enforcement or military or other types of situations, engineers, we don't have to go into all the spiritual aspects, but just as people get more coherent, that inner alignment starts to happen anyway, and they start making better choices and talking about their intuition. They never would have before.